There's a Thunder taping in Tallahassee. Reed's competing in a big amateur tournament. And for whatever reason, things go south. We've got both the parties here.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys take it from there.
Good. Go ahead, Eric. I got my side of it.
Yeah, and this is something, it's funny. It is the elephant in the room, and as much time as Rick and I have spent together, since 1998, even the last 5 years or 10 years, it's something that he and I really never talk about. And again, I can only give you my perspective on where my head was at and what I recall of the situation. And it's a little bit like the one we previously discussed. It's a lot clearer to me now than it was then, and it falls into that category of things that I regret. And I've talked about this in other interviews, so it's not like I'm not being gratuitous here just for the sake of this interview. I've said this as recently as 2 or 3 weeks ago in an interview. It was a by 1998. As the situation that Rick just described about the politics and the personalities and the pushing and the pulling and just the drama, the million moving pieces, all of them volatile, all of that reached a head in '98 for me. And not only was that going on within the wrestling side of the world at WCW, on the non-visible side of the world at WCW. This is when the Time Warner Turner merger began to really change the dynamics of things internally. So that not only was I fighting the battle, and now I don't make it sound like I was fighting a battle, not only was I involved in all of the drama that goes along with the entertainment business, not just wrestling. And Rick just made a reference to, 7 o'clock before a show, we still didn't know what we were doing at 8 o'clock. Well, guess what? That still happens at WWE. From what I'm told.
It does. I'm there, and it's because there's different components and all. But I mean, it's like, and it's also because they are in the midst, in my opinion, they are in the midst of branding 3 or 4 guys right now that are really close to carrying a brand that resonates worldwide. Does that make sense? I mean, you got John Cena, you got Randy Orton on one side, right? But Roman Reigns has come along now, and Seth Rollins, and these guys are real close. Another year from now, they'll be as big a name, household name as the guys. So they're doing that, and of course, there's so many people that have input, to Vince and all that, and but he's hands on. I mean, the final decision comes to him, but he's got 100 people throwing stuff at him. That's my take on
it. And my situation was different. The chaos was caused maybe by different things, but the end result is the same. It was sheer chaos. And on the other side of my equation, I had the politics of a takeover taking place. I was having my budgets being cut after they had been approved 6 months earlier. I had people that didn't even know what night of the week Nitro was on, telling me how I should be creating the content and who my audience should be. They didn't even know what night of the name of the show was Monday Night Nitro. They didn't even know what night of the week the show was on, but yet they were telling me how I should be shaping the content of the show to reach the audience that they thought I should reach. So I had, on the one hand, I had all of the drama that goes along with the entertainment business, including wrestling, and the chaos and the emotion of it all. And then when I got to the office, I had another world of chaos and drama. I was making bad decisions and bad choices at that time. So when the incident, the situation with Rick came up, and he wanted his time off, I was getting input. I had people around me, and I was getting information that was either incorrect or information that I interpreted incorrectly, or I had agreed to something that I didn't recall agreeing to, which is entirely possible. Whatever the situation was, there was a difference of opinion and a breakdown in the communication between Rick and his side of the equation, including probably Barry Bloom at the time, and me and my side of the equation. Well, as often happens when two people like Rick and I, Rick is an emotional person who has passion for his family, his career, he knows his business, but he wears it on his sleeve. And by the way, so did I. I didn't have as much knowledge as Rick about my business, but I was equally passionate and emotional at times. And sometimes it doesn't work for your benefit. And what happened, what started out as something that could have probably been easily solved and fixed, each side of the equation, and I want to say the camps because I don't want to blame it on other people. That's not fair. But the situation escalated to the point where Rick felt like, this is my take, Rick, I'm not putting words in your mouth.
No, it's okay.
Rick felt like he had to draw a line in the sand and stand up for what he believed in. I felt, from my point of view, the wheels had been starting to fall off. Talent was getting more and more difficult to manage. And by the way, remember, this is when, talent had somewhere else to go. It wasn't like it is today in WWE, where if you don't like it here, you can go work the indie circuit, for $200 a night. They're the only show in town now, so guys that are making good money aren't as likely to go. Hey, they're not likely to start playing too many games. Back then, gamesmanship was at an all-time high, probably in both companies.
Yeah.
And because of that, I was making bad decisions. So from my point of view, I kind of went, wait a minute. If I allow, and I don't remember what it was Rick was asking for, to be very honest.
No, let me bring you up to speed because I'll summarize this for you. You were gone on vacation, and I had asked, you had already given me the weekend off, and I said I had to go to weigh in on Thursday. And they had Thunder, which was a secondary show anyway, in Tallahassee.
And you were in like Minnesota or something, right?
No, it was in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
Okay, but in Eric's absence, what is the lawyer's name that was trying to run the company?
Nick Lambros.
I felt like he was kind of undermining anyway, right?
Yeah.
So Eric's gone. You might have been out of the country or something. I know you were gone somewhere. And he calls me out of nowhere and says, what are you doing? I said, I asked for the time off. He said, well, who'd you ask? I can't even remember. It was Janie or somebody. I mean, there's a number of people you could run that by, right? Yeah. And Eric, like Eric said, a lot going on in 98, right? But it was Thunder. And he goes to me, well, we'll send a jet for you. You pay half of it. I said, what are you talking about? You fly Hogan around in a jet every day long. I'm not doing it anyway. I'm not keeping my kid out till 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I just think this is my take on it. He's the one that gave you the word like I never told him to stick it up his ass. I just said, I'm not leaving my son. And he's trained for this, and I already got the weekend off. Why wouldn't I have Thursday off? I mean, what are you doing? I'm not even on TV. I wasn't on Nitro Monday. What am I doing on Thursday? You know what I mean? And my take on this is that the other guys were just saying, I think the other guys, and I've said this before, we're just telling Eric, we're not doing it. We'll do Nitro. Nobody wants to go to Thunder. Am I pretty much accurate on that, Eric?
Yeah, well, it was, yes.
It was a secondary show. It's like SmackDown. They don't, there are a lot of replays in that. And Hulk, I can tell you right now, I don't think Hulk ever did a Thunder.
He did some, yeah.
Well, maybe in the beginning, but later on, he wasn't flying around doing Thunder. I mean, everybody was going. That's when everybody was just kind of doing their own thing.
But Eric, is it fair to say, based on your answer, the decision was made that the talent or the inmates were trying to run the asylum, and you were going to make an example out of Rick?
Yes. I mean, that's a lot colder than I would say it, but I think that it got to the point because,
that's okay.
Rick drew a line on the sand. He had made up his mind that he was going to do what he was going to do.
Well, but I drew a line in the sand with Nick. I never even talked to you. That's the thing.
No, I know, but then I got involved after the fact.
Yeah, and you heard it secondhand because I can tell you I never told Nick to stick it up his butt. I just said, man, I ain't going.
In your book, Rick, it says, at the April 13th Nitro, Eric gathered the wrestlers backstage. I later read that this is what he told them. Quote, look, Ric Flair's a liar, and everyone lets him get away with it because he's Ric Flair. Let him be Ric Flair. I'm going to sue him and his family into bankruptcy.
Yeah, I know that. That's a true statement, I guess. I was told that. I wasn't there, obviously.
I would say it's probably, if not 100% accurate, probably 90% accurate.
So let's talk about, the other thing that everybody, floats around also in your book, Rick. Chris Jericho's quoted as saying, Eric said nobody in the room had ever drawn a dime except Hogan, Savage, and Piper. Ric Flair, one of the greatest draws of all time, was sitting right there, and everybody's kind of looking at him, and he just had to take it. It was a very bad atmosphere. What was the deal with that? Was this just where it got personal with you guys, and now it was just a pissing contest?
Let me back up.
I was at that meeting.
let me back up a couple steps because we're referring to quotes that I have made or close versions of them. Going back to the first comment or the first quote about what I was going to do and I was going to sue Ric Flair into bankruptcy. I don't think I would have said I was going to sue his family into bankruptcy because that's just not me. His family wasn't a part of the problem, and I would never. It's never been a part of who I am to kind of point out somebody's family. I believe I probably did say I'm going to sue Ric Flair into bankruptcy. My point, and I often, gotten older, gotten smarter, gotten better, wiser, but so often when I was younger, I would get a little too bombastic to make a point. My point should have been, guys, you have contracts. We're going to enforce the contracts. If you're going to breach the contracts, then you're going to pay. Then you're going to deal with the consequences of that, good or bad. That's what I should have said. But in my bombastic, fiery, kind of like screw you, kind of delivery, it came off the way it came off. I don't think I would have included the family part, but maybe it did happen. I'll give it a possible. On the second quote that Jericho referred to, I kind of remember that. And that was at a time. Again, I'm going to give it context. That was at a time when talent was. Remember what I said earlier in this interview. That those million moving pieces were all volatile. Every one of them could have exploded at any moment. That was when it was at its peak. And I wanted to make the point, look, if you don't like it here, then leave. And I do recall, I vaguely, not word for word, but I do recall making the statement that Jericho referred to. And I also remember going, oh, that was fucking stupid. Sorry. I do remember thinking to myself, wow, that was really stupid.
Well, my take on that comment is I look back on it too. Once again, you got to keep the guys that are giving you the hardest time, which certainly wasn't me, because I was glad when you put me on the show. I couldn't wait to be there. I mean, I remember one time I called you and said, "Please let me wrestle Sting." I was in Anderson, South Carolina. You said, "Okay." I said, "If we don't get a 4, I'll never ask you for another favor." You let me wrestle Sting, because I liked being on the show, but I mean, it just got. The guys, they just didn't like me on it. I mean, I know that, Eric. I'm not. It doesn't mean they didn't like me as a person. Nobody likes competition. I mean, as you know, if you're going to give me a 5-minute interview, someone's going to have a hard time following. I don't care who it is.
Well, I think to Conrad's question, though, and there's a statement when he said, "Is it safe to say, that inmates were starting to run the asylum?" The answer is yes, it is true. And my flaw in what I wished, would have been different at the time is that I would have had the experience and maybe the maturity to handle that in a different way, because I didn't handle it well. I overreacted. Rick lived in Minnesota a long time. Conrad, I don't know where you're from originally. You probably don't get a lot of ice down in Huntsville, but
no, sir.
When you're driving down an icy road, the biggest mistake you can make if you start to feel like you're losing control is to overcorrect. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I did. I started to feel like I was losing control, and because of a variety of things, I overcorrected. And the overcorrection is what caused a lot of issues. A lot of it has to do with respect. It just does.
Yeah, but Eric, I'll give you an example of stuff, and I've related this to Conrad. I think everybody knows this. You didn't go on the road with us, right? We'd get to towns. And that doesn't mean I'm not even going to mention the names because you know who they are. And they would have 18,000 people. I can think of one time we were in Indianapolis, and that was a big crowd, and Peyton Manning was in the front row and all that, right? The main event went 3.5 minutes. That's where we were getting killed. That was towards the end, because
killing towns. You mean?
Yeah, that you can't. Guys wouldn't do what they were asked to do, and that certainly wasn't me. So I can say that without any guilt myself. If they asked me to put somebody over, it wasn't a problem, as you know. I mean, it just, it is what it is. But
let's circle back to,
And no names have to be mentioned, but, there was, people didn't want to do favors. That was what it was. And all worried about where they were going to be the next day. It's like, and I've been through that before. When I wrestled Brody and Stan Hansen and that back in the 80s or 70s, in the 80s, my world champion, They wouldn't put me over. You know why? Because back then the wrestling magazines were all that Japan lived on. You know what I mean? We didn't have TV. And if you don't think that wasn't a night for me, wrestling Bruiser Brody for an hour, because he wasn't going to put me over. Harley Race would say, he's going to put you over tonight, or I'm going to, I said, Harley, please, let him, we'll do it. I'll get through it. But the guys that were making a living in Japan, they wouldn't do business. That's why Brody, he'd be on TV one time in New York for a week and quit, and Stan Hansen, I mean, and it's nothing against them, but they were making their money in Japan. And they weren't going to do something that was going to be on the cover, doing a favor for Ric Flair, who was the NWA champion. And plus, they wouldn't put me over when I wrestled him in Japan either. So it's not the first. I've seen that before.
So, Rick,
guys trying to protect their spot. I mean, would you say that's accurate, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot to do with it. Quite a bit.
Yeah, the guys, nobody wanted to give ground because they were worried that they were going to lose their spot. And if they just understand, I've said this to 1,000 guys, if you go out there and you tear the joint down, they don't remember who won or lost.
Right.
I try to tell guys that every day now because guys don't like, I love the young kids up there. But, I see some of them walking around their paw. I said, guys, go out there and tear the joint down. Show the people why you're different. They don't give a damn who wins or loses. Everybody's going to bat 500 anyway. That's the way the business is. And I've kind of lived that concept. I'm worried about how many matches I've lost. I mean, technically, I've won 16. That's about it. And half of that was